Welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. Look at these strawberries. Today's story is about Travis Walton. Now, in November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton disappeared for approximately 6 days, 7 days. He disappeared the night of November 5th, and then he reappeared just after midnight on November 12th. Now, this story has so many twists and turns that it really is difficult to say what actually happened. Over the years, there's been a lot of rumors about the Travis Walton case. There's been a lot of people involved. It has become one of the most famous UFO cases in history because of the massive amount of press that it received, the search for Travis Walton, as well as the state he was in when he was found. On November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton and 6 others were in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest in Arizona. Travis Walton's boss, Mike Rogers, had a contract to clear the national forest of a lot of debris. This is supposed to help to prevent fires. And the reason that they do this is with all the dry timber, especially in Arizona, they have these massive heat waves. If this stuff catches, it tends to obliterate the national forests. So this contract was for clearing out these portions of the national forest. On November 5th, it is alleged that Travis Walton and 6 others were driving in a pickup truck, a work truck, down a logging road, going home for the night after doing a long day of logging in the national forest. As the men were leaving the national forest, they all said that they saw a bright, luminescent object just behind the trees. At the time that they saw this, it was alleged that they were arguing and bickering about what it was, and as they drove further down the road, they got a much clearer view. It was said that it was in a clearing just off the side of the road. Once they stopped the truck, Travis Walton jumped out and ran towards the object. Once he was in close proximity to the object, it was said that he sort of bent down for a second. He watched as the men were screaming for him to get back in the truck. When Travis Walton stood back up near this object, there was a large flash of light, and it was said that his body was thrown many feet backwards and landed in a heap on the ground. When that happened, the other 6 men ran away. They panicked, they drove away, and they started driving down the logging road to get away from the scene. They were terrified by what they had just seen, and they didn't know if the object might hurt them or if they had killed Travis. In fact, many of them said they killed him, they got him. These are the types of things that were reported being said in the truck at the time of this incident. So the men leave. And after a few minutes of driving down the logging road, trying to quote unquote hightail it out of there, they started to get in disagreements about whether they should leave Travis behind. Eventually, they came to their senses. They turned back around and went to the location he was last seen. When they got there, the object was gone, and so was Travis's body. These men left the site and then went to a local sheriff's office. When they went to the sheriff's office, it was about 7:45. They reported what happened. Now, at first, the sheriffs believed that they had just simply killed Travis. The men were telling this fantastic tale of a UFO and killing Travis Walton, or what they thought he might be dead after what happened. So the sheriff initiated a murder investigation on these 6 men and gave them polygraph tests. When they brought in a polygraph examiner to question these men about what had transpired that night when Travis went missing, it turned out that 5 of them seemed to be telling the truth. They passed their polygraphs with only 1 man, and the polygraph examiner said that his results were inaccurate or inconclusive. You have these 5 men that pass a polygraph test while in police custody, and eventually they were released after these intense interrogations about what had happened. And there was a massive search and rescue effort that transpired shortly after. About 50 people participated. Now, while this was happening, it is alleged that Travis's brother, as well as his boss, Mike Rogers, so his brother's name is Dwayne Walton, and his boss is named Mike Rogers. So it was alleged shortly after his disappearance that they had done an interview. I cannot find that interview. But skeptics to this case point to this interview as being anomalous for two reasons. One, Mike Rogers later on went to say that the entire thing was a hoax and it was fabricated, and even said that he had talked to Travis himself about fabricating a UFO encounter. And Dwayne, during this interview, supposedly said that he knew where Travis was, and both of these people didn't seem to be worried about the state of Travis Walton. After the interview, it was said that both men acted as if they knew Travis Walton would return. So now that you have this interview with Dwayne and Mike, this search happened, and one of the things that also came out was that Travis and his mother were so-called UFO believers, and it was also alleged that they had made some sort of agreement, or they had made some sort of admissions that if they had ever seen a UFO, they would try to run under it and get as close a look as they can. It was also alleged that they said something to the effect of, well, if you ever saw a UFO, you couldn't pass up the opportunity. In fact, in the days after, as they searched for Travis Walton's body, which people assumed he may have been dead, his mother apparently told the police multiple times not to look for him, that she knew that he wasn't there and they wouldn't be able to find him. She also made some comments about him being on a spaceship. When you have Mike Rogers saying that they hoaxed it later on, and you have these admissions from Travis's mother that he's on a spaceship, and you have Dwayne Walton saying that he knew where he was, it gave all the ammunition that skeptics possibly needed to say that this case was a complete and total fabrication. The issue is that the other 5 men still stuck to their story. So for several days afterwards, you had many people reaching out to the UFO community. It was alleged that Dwayne Walton reached out to multiple people in the UFO community. It was about 2 days later that the story really started to spread wildly. By November 8th, it was international news that this man had been taken or killed, or whatever had transpired with the UFO. So all of these UFO researchers started to contact the family, and apparently Dwayne Walton had made some contacts with these UFO researchers that were bombarding the family home with phone calls. So what ended up happening was, on November 12th, just after midnight, Travis Walton reappeared. After all the media and press of this disappearance, when Travis Walton reappeared, he was on the side of the road and he walked to a nearby payphone. When he tried to call home, apparently he didn't have any money to call, so he used the phone and called collect. Now, back during this time in 1975, you would dial an operator. The local operator that he dialed to reach his family noticed his name and called the local sheriff to report what she had heard on the phone. Now, he called into his family, and they sent his brother Dwayne to come pick him up, and they brought him home. Now, once he was home, Dwayne contacted some of these UFO researchers to get Travis medical help. It was said that he had 5 days worth at least of facial hair growth. Even the operator said that when he had made the phone call, she worried that he may have been intoxicated. Now, Travis himself reports being completely disheveled at the time, sort of out of it and struggling to grasp what he had just experienced. But she reported that he may have been intoxicated at the time. Travis was taken by his brother to get some medical exams done in fear of what happened to him. So he got some EEGs that later on he described as anomalous. He apparently was invited to go onto a show to do essentially an interview with the Inquirer. It was alleged that during that interview he decided not to take a polygraph that the police wanted him to take. So a lot of skeptics point to that as him going to the media instead of going to the real investigators about what had happened. Eventually, he did take a polygraph exam several days after this event, And the polygraph examiner said that he believed that he was purposely trying to beat the polygraph. The polygraph examiner alleged that he was holding his breath in to try to beat the machine, or to try to influence the results of the polygraph. Now, Travis Walton has had a terrible history with polygraph exams. He has failed multiple, but he has also passed multiple polygraphs. Now, after this, after Travis came home, his family took him in. He apparently was not well psychologically. He reported having a lot of traumatic issues over the time. But this is what essentially happened. He came back and reported that after being blasted with the beam of light, he did not know what happened. He reported that he woke up on a craft. There were these strange creatures around him. He grabbed for a utensil off a nearby table and started to try to attack them. It was said that they ran out of the room, and when they did, there was another creature that seemed more human with some sort of helmet on that came out to meet him. After that, it was said that he was laid back down and some sort of mask was placed on his face, and he passed out again. When he woke up, he was on the side of the road watching the UFO fly away, and that's when he went to call his family from the payphone. Now, during his evaluations, one of the researchers found that he had a small mark on the inside of his arm near his elbow, and they alleged that it was evidence of drug use. One of the doctors that examined him later on said the way he was acting reminded him of one of his drug patients. So you have all this sort of issues with whether he's telling the truth, whether he's not telling the truth, passing and failing multiple lie detectors. You have issues with the other men involved, where one of them retracted their story. It was actually Mike Rogers in 2021 retracted his story, and he was caught on videotape talking to a reporter. So this reporter recorded him without his knowledge, which was legal in the state of Arizona. And when he did, Mike Rogers essentially admitted that Travis and himself had discussed creating a UFO, and that when Travis Walton ran out, that even though Mike had nothing to do with the hoax, that he just knew it was a hoax when he saw this object. Now, later on, Mike Rogers retracted his statement. He put out a statement essentially that Travis Walton was attempting to make another movie, and that Mike Rogers was not invited. And that because of that, Travis Walton keeps a lot of secrets and he's a liar. Mike Rogers made these statements. And then shortly after that, he retracted all his statements and has said that everything he said was not true. So when you have people going back and forth like this, like Mike Rogers, when you have these strange statements made by Dwayne Walton that they knew where he was and he would be back and things like that. And then, of course, his mother telling everyone that he was in a spaceship and not to look for him. The skeptics had a field day with this. In fact, Philip Klass came out against this case multiple times. He was a UFO researcher with some renown. I have to say that Philip Klass has no class, in my opinion. Philip Klass, when he died, he put out what's known as the Klass curse. So this man essentially put out a statement on his death, upon his death, that basically told people that he curses them to never know what UFOs are. So essentially he's telling people that they will spend their whole life searching and trying to figure out what UFOs are, and he is cursing them that they'll never understand it. So imagine you have a threat to national security. You have these objects manipulating nuclear missiles. You have them abducting people, performing these heinous surgeries and manipulations on people. And you have a guy that's going around telling everybody, I hope you never figure out what it is. That is not only un-American, but it's an incredibly dangerous way to think. It's an extremely ugly thing for someone to say. And it really shows that this guy is exactly what people painted him as all those years, as a person that's not really trying to get down to the bare bones of what this UFO phenomena is, but someone that's just out to debunk these popular cases like Travis Walton or Betty and Barney Hill. Travis Walton's story went on to become a film known as Fire in the Sky, but Travis Walton issued statements over and over and over again that he did not like the way the film was handled. Travis Walton said that he believed that he got too close to this object and got hurt, and that the creatures actually saved his life. In Fire in the Sky, the producers made it into a horror movie, which Travis Walton spoke out against many times. He said that it wasn't accurate enough. The creatures didn't look accurate. The procedures they did to him were not accurate. I'm going to show you a clip from Fire in the Sky just to illustrate the issues with the film, and show you how they tried to really make these scenes into a horror movie.
So for 5 days, a man was borrowed. The story that Travis Walton and 5 other witnesses told was so unbelievable, so unimaginable, that it has become the most famous case of UFO abduction ever reported.
Later on in Travis Walton's life, he ended up going on a lot of podcasts, doing some media, things like that, and he eventually went on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Now, during Travis Walton's interview with the Joe Rogan Experience, he talks about his friend being offered money by Philip Klass to change his story. Now, we've heard this from multiple people over the years that this UFO researcher was connected with government. In fact, it was alleged that he had secret ties to the NSA. Now, you have these reports of him offering people vast amounts of money to change their story, and you also have this curse that he put out on people that they'll never understand what UFOs are. And not only that, but you have him meddling with some of the most famous UFO cases the world's ever seen. Travis Walton's interview with the Joe Rogan Experience was illuminating, and it brings up a lot of questions about what's actually going on. You know, you have an issue where he says that he believes they helped him, they saved him after he was injured accidentally. The problem with this is when he talks about an experience that he had several years later. In this experience, he details that a UFO flew over his car with himself and his girlfriend, and he had missing time. When he regained consciousness, his girlfriend was missing their unborn child. Now, it was alleged that she went in to get ultrasounds and that the baby was missing, but the umbilical cord was still there.
With a UFO somewhere on Route I-5 or Road I-5 or Highway I-5 friend at the time. Do you mind recounting that?
Yeah, it's the same sighting, and yes, she was with me. And so was my son.
And what happened?
Well, it's in her estimation, there was missing time. It seemed to take a lot longer to get home than it should have. Accounting for time differences and the whole thing. But again, I've always tried to avoid reporting things I can't corroborate. Everything has to be documented.
Was there missing time on your part, or only she reported that to you?
Well, I agree with her, her estimations and comments about it, but by itself, it doesn't constitute proof, and it's just something we find very interesting.
And your son also experienced missing time or time dilation?
He doesn't disagree. He's just, how would you know, on a long drive like that, all the way from Burbank to Snowflake, Arizona, how do you know for sure?
Was there something about your girlfriend at the time was pregnant, and then after this sighting, she became not pregnant, and it was because of alien interference? I don't know if I'm reading that by surmising from the questions, or if I've read or heard that somewhere.
Well, boy, that is something I don't really bring out that much because, she works in a government facility and, has a security clearance, and I really don't have her permission to talk about that or name her or whatever. But she had a mark across her stomach. I went into the gynecologist's office with her. I observed on the ultrasound that there was a placenta, a cord, and the fetus had just disappeared.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Now, in that clip, when he talks about this, he doesn't seem to really look at it the way that most people would. If this truly was an accident and he was harmed, and then later on they are taking his unborn child from his girlfriend, then you have this major issue, a disconnect. If you walked across traffic and someone hit you with their car and took you to the hospital to get fixed up, if they showed up a few years later and took your child, you would say, well, maybe they targeted me on purpose. Like perhaps this wasn't an accident, that Travis simply got too close to whatever this craft was, but maybe they were targeting him. Maybe they selected him, or perhaps after they picked him up, he had something that they wanted. He also has admitted multiple times to having additional experiences. He says that because of the public backlash when he came forward the first time, that he keeps these experiences to himself. There is a possibility in the future that he might release these experiences to the public. So what do you think? Is Travis Walton's case legitimate? Did he lie on these polygraphs? Are his cohorts telling the truth? Why is Mike Rogers flip-flopping back and forth in this case? Were the police right when they originally polygraphed these men that they were telling the truth? Without much physical evidence of the UFO itself, we really can't say whether it was a hoax or whether it was a legitimate encounter. And I think that's really what's fascinated people so much over the years. Is you have so many people involved in this case, and yet you really can't get to the bottom of what the truth is. So what do you think? If you'd like to support our channel, go to the description or in the pinned comment down below. That's the unacceptable news. Don't like, don't subscribe, just run.